How's it going, Giants fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo, and today we want to discuss about the Giants bringing in some linebackers to work out. Now, we obviously know the linebacker position has been a little bit spotty for the Giants to start the season. Tay Crowder, Austin Calitro, Micah McFadden, obviously we cut Blake Martinez right before the regular season began and left a big gaping hole there. And now, we're kind of looking for supplements, guys who can come in and help. Two specifically worked out that we want to discuss. Jalen Smith, former Giant, former Cowboy. Of course, we signed him right before the Cowboys game again. They did sign him to the practice squad. They have not signed Joe Schobert yet, but he did work out for the team, and want to discuss why maybe he would be a good fit, because I do think that there is some value left there. He started in 15 games last year for the Pittsburgh Steelers, played in all 16 games, and he offers some decent coverage quality. We'll talk about that. We'll discuss kind of his statistics and what he'd bring to the squad, and Smith obviously as well. But Anthony, before we dive into the good stuff, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. Looking ahead to Monday. Super excited for the Giants' first divisional game of the season on Monday night versus the Cowboys. That's going to be a good one. That's going to be super intense. Really hoping that either Azeez Ojulari or Kayvon Thibodeaux can be ready for that game, if not both of them. I think that Kayvon Thibodeaux, I know I saw you tweet this today, Alex. Kayvon Thibodeaux getting his first sack for the Giants on a Monday night game against the Cowboys at home would just be historic. That would be an iconic moment. I really hope we can have that happen. But of course, as we prepare for this Monday night game, the Giants are making a couple tinkerings to their roster, a little tweak here and there. The linebacker position has been a soft spot for the Giants through 2 weeks. A lot of mishaps in coverage from that linebacker position. So the Giants are going to have to figure out a way to supplement that, whether that be having McKinney play more in the box. I know he made a couple plays in coverage in the box in week 2, but the Giants really could afford to add some more linebacker depth and really some depth at some other positions as well. But it's going to be really interesting to see if they do call Jalen Smith up to the regular season roster, the 53-man roster on Monday. I think that will likely happen this weekend. However, it'll also be interesting to see Joe Schobert. Will he get signed by the Giants? I think that that's a name that we should definitely keep a close eye on. Joe Schobert having some coverage capabilities. I think he could be a good fit for the New York Giants.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Dontrell Hilliard for the Tennessee Titans completely destroyed Tate Crowder, completely destroyed Austin Calitro in coverage in week 1, had 2 touchdowns against each of those guys. And in week 2, Wink Martindale had to do something quite unique to supplement that coverage issue, right? Because we couldn't trust Christian McCaffrey to, run all over these guys. So what Wink Martindale did said, okay, you know what? Let's bring our best defender in the defensive backfield, Xavier McKinney, and let's put him at the linebacker position. He played, I think, 18 snaps in the box, 18 at free safety, and a 14 on the defensive line. He had 2 batted passes, which were his passes that were defended. And Dane Belton actually played the majority of his snaps at free safety to supplement that. So the Giants had to get a little bit unique and creative with the ways that they were using their safeties, a lot of 3 safety looks to try and supplement the linebacker position. And obviously the Giants can't do that regularly because they need Xavier McKinney in the defensive backfield. They need him back there against better quarterbacks to mitigate long throws and just big route concepts down there. So obviously linebackers a priority. Jalen Smith, a guy who spent some games last year with the Giants specifically. He played in 10 games last year, started in 4. He played 4 for the Dallas Cowboys, 2 for the Green Bay Packers, and 4 for the Giants. He had 19 tackles for the Giants, 12 solos, 1 tackle for loss, 1 QB hit, and he had a sack. He's a pretty athletic guy. I know he got injured a couple of years ago, but he could play a multitude of different positions, weak side, middle linebacker. You could even rush him off the edge if you wanted to. I wouldn't do that. But he could, be used as a pass rusher with his athleticism, speed. He's 6'2", 245 pounds. He's a big guy. So the Giants obviously could get a little bit more creative with the way they use Jalen Smith. Now, Joe Schobert, on the other hand, is like a knockoff Blake Martinez in his prime, right? Blake Martinez, guy at 140, 150 tackles a year. Joe Schobert played, left inside linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers last season at 28 years old. 16 games he played in, 112 tackles, 70 solos. Had a quarterback hit, 2 tackles for a loss. This was the first year he didn't record a sack. So there is a little bit of value there if the Giants want to utilize him, rushing the passer from the middle of the defense. He also had 6 passes defended, and he's actually had 2 forced fumbles in all of his, 4 of his 6 seasons in the NFL. He had 1 forced fumble last year. So that's pretty good stuff there. Jalen Smith is on the practice squad. You mentioned that they may call him up within the next few days. But I wonder how much Joe Schobert would cost the Giants. What do you think a reasonable contract would look like for him? I mean, he's a veteran, he's an experienced guy. He's probably not going to be signed for a veteran minimum, but probably a low cost, probably maybe $2 million for the rest of the season, 1.5 mil, a little bit more than Vetman.
I would think so. I mean, he hasn't been signed by a team just yet, and we are midway through September. So I think if he was going to get signed for anything that's worth like a lucrative contract at all, he would have been signed during the summer. For him to still be available as a free agent, it likely means I think there is a chance that he could be signed for the veteran minimum. He is a veteran. He has not been signed by a team. So if he wants to play football, he might have to just take the veteran minimum and move on. But yeah, maybe 2 million or less is probably what I would predict for Joe Schobert. But when you take a look at Joe Schobert's career grades on PFF, and I know PFF grade, to take it with a grain of salt, but if you look at his career history as well, the statistics and everything, he used to be not like Blake Martinez at all. I think in his later years, because of the different defensive systems that he's played in with Jacksonville and Pittsburgh, he's kind of molded more into a Blake Martinez-esque role, which is run defending, tackle heavy, putting up 130, 140 combined tackles in a season, right? But if you take a look back to his years in Cleveland, Joe Schobert was used as a coverage linebacker. He was very good in coverage. He was known for covering tight ends and running backs. And I think that the Giants are probably looking at Joe Schobert saying, okay, yes, he could fit into that role that we're missing now and be that big tackle influencer and just get a bunch of combined tackles, fly all over the field, get involved in the run defense. Or maybe we could get him to kind of unlock what he had in the past, fit him into a defensive system that relies on him and his coverage abilities, see if he still has those coverage abilities, and just maybe get a decent coverage linebacker, because as we know, through 2 weeks, that's probably been the Giants' biggest weakness thus far. Tay Crowder not getting it done as a coverage linebacker. Austin Calitro also very poor in coverage from the linebacker position. Joe Schobert, though, in the past, if you take a look at his 2018 season, he had an 87.7 coverage grade via PFF, and if you look at his stats, he allowed only 60% receptions, 177 yards, and 1 touchdown. He also had an interception, 3 pass breakups. He was really good in coverage in the 2018 season, but then he moved over to Jacksonville in 2020, playing in a new defensive system that wasn't utilizing his coverage capabilities as well, and he's kind of just plummeted off since then. The man should have never left Cleveland, which is so funny to think, because usually everybody needs to get out of Cleveland to have a good career. They go to Cleveland and then their career dies. Kind of the opposite for Joe Schobert. He left Cleveland and then his career died. Very strange anomaly there. But if you take a look at it, the way that he played in that defensive system, was used a lot in coverage, was very good at it. The next defensive systems he played with, not very heavily utilized in the coverage, and he wasn't very good in coverage in those systems. So I don't know if that's because it was man versus zone coverage primarily. I think it was a lot of zone over in Cleveland, so maybe he's not the best fit in Wink Martindale's man-heavy defense. However, I just think maybe signing Joe Schobert to be a coverage linebacker would be a good idea as quality depth. As we know, really bad coverage linebackers on the Giants right now. I think it would be a good idea to add some more coverage linebackers.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And looking at last year, his coverage grade specifically, he gave up 380 yards in coverage with a 68.4% reception rate, which actually isn't that bad for a linebacker. Usually you're looking at like 75+%. Just easy to take advantage of. He gave up 1 touchdown. He had an interception, 4 pass breakups. His coverage grades are pretty good. Like the last couple of weeks of the season for the Steelers, he was pretty sharp. He didn't give up more than 23 yards. And he was heavily targeted at times. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. He had 2 standout bad games, one of them against Darren Waller, which makes sense, and the other one against Mark Andrews, which makes even more sense. So obviously they manned him up against some very good tight ends, and he struggled significantly against them, but most players do to begin with. It's not, this isn't like, you're putting a linebacker against some of the best tight ends in football. You're expecting them to lose, and they did a pretty good job. I guess just putting him in positions to succeed in coverage against other weaker opponents. So coverage grades aren't terrible. He definitely had some of his better years back in Cleveland during 2017, 2018, 2019. Jacksonville kind of fell off a cliff, and then Pittsburgh, he was maybe about average, a little bit above average in the pass coverage category, but he's a decent run defender. He has up and down games, a little bit inconsistent. Some games are better than others, but like with any player, you expect those swings. Joe Schobert, obviously a free agent for a reason. I think if the team wanted him, he'd be on a squad already. But with that being said, the Giants have a major weakness right now. They just don't have linebackers that can cover. And I think that Joe Schobert would immediately become their best one. They currently have $5.16 million in available salary space. So, if he takes a player, let's say he signs a 1-year, $1.5 million deal, it's a very, very low financial commitment to Schobert. You're replacing him with a veteran minimum, or with probably a veteran minimum contract anyway. So it's like $750K. So you're paying him another $750K. That doesn't take that much off of the books for the Giants. You still are left with about $4.5 million to spend. which is plenty enough. I don't think any of the money would be guaranteed, or maybe half of it would be guaranteed, which is like not that much if you're, looking at such a low price point. But I think this would be a pretty easy decision for the Giants to make. Obviously, they signed Jalen Smith. I think they worked out at the same time. So maybe they like what they saw from Jalen Smith a little bit more. He's a bigger guy. Maybe they want to blitz more from the linebacker position, and they feel comfortable with their three safeties. Dane Belton making that return. So who knows? This is definitely interesting. But do you think the Giants can continue to rely on their safeties to pick up the slack at the linebacker position, or do you think they kind of have to start to ease away from that?
No, I think they can rely on those guys. I think the safety position is, pretty well depth by the Giants. I think when you have Xavier McKinney as your starter, Julian Love alongside him, and then you also have a young rookie in Dane Belton, plus a veteran experienced guy like Tony Jefferson, those are all guys that can play deep and play in the box. They have the ability to do both. So I do think that for the New York Giants, the way that they want to run this defense, if it's blitz heavy, yeah, linebackers can help you blitz better, but also if you want to blitz your edge rushers and, drop extra linebackers down into coverage or drop your linebackers into a blitzing spot and then move some safeties into the box, you really want more coverage out there than anything, which means you're going to want to play more dime and nickel packages and put more defensive backs on the field rather than more linebackers. The linebackers that you have out there need to be capable in the blitzing category, but the defensive backs need to be capable in the box category. And I think that all of those guys really have that on lock. Again, Dane Belton has played as a cash safety, so he's played a lot in the box. We know Xavier McKinney's played linebacker in the box before. Same with Julian Love. So, and Tony Jefferson has literally played like linebacker before. That dude used to be a very heavy hitter, just getting involved in the running game when he was with Baltimore. So I think that all of these safeties, it is enough for the Giants. They can rely on those guys. Would it hurt to add depth at linebacker? Absolutely not. Should they probably try and go out there and find the coverage linebacker? I think so, just for the depth of it. But I do think that they can get by with their safeties. However, what happens if a safety gets injured? Now you're kind of in trouble. So yes, the Giants should go out there, try to find a veteran linebacker that's good in pass coverage and add him to the roster. But Alex, I'm going to propose to you a little question, a little scenario, hypothetical that might just piss you off, but I got to do it because it's so much fun. So Joe Schobert, very cheap deal. You're saying you could probably sign him for under $2 million. Half of it's guaranteed, super, super cheap. And the Giants have $5 million to spend. But would you do that if it meant that you can no longer sign Odell Beckham Jr.?
Is he even back healthy? He tore his ACL in the freaking Super Bowl.
I have no idea. I just think all the rumors swirling on Twitter are so much fun. Everybody wants the OBJ reunion to happen. I think it's a blast. I think we should maybe even do an episode about that just so I can be my OBJ fanboy and, have some fun. But I don't know. Probably going with the linebacker. That's probably the more effective, cost-effective decision there. But
I don't
know.
OBJ's
I think it would be great
to
see the reunion.
That would be like the
I don't think so either. Well, I heard
time ever.
He did tear his ACL in February, but I did hear that he was
months.
cutting again. He was doing cutting, is what I heard.
Yeah,
so
but that's still doing cutting. You're still far from actually playing. I'm not paying a guy who literally can't play. You know what I mean? Like he probably can't even play right now.
Absolutely.
That's the second ACL tear that he's had on that knee. I mean, look, I'm not paying him anything lucrative. If I was going to bring OBJ back, it's like a 1 year, like $3 million deal max. I'm not paying.
But that's not going to happen because he's OBJ and he's going to sell a bunch of jerseys anyway.
So. String cheese at this point. So I don't know what you're expecting from this guy. It's like his ACL's being held together by a freaking paperclip. I don't know. It's I'm not paying him much. That's for sure. I'd rather go with the linebacker support right now. But if he's fully healthy and he wants to take a huge pay cut and the Giants are playing well and Daniel Jones needs another receiver, sure, bring him back by all means. I love OBJ. He made watching the Giants actually like justifiable when he was on the team. So I respect him. Always love him for that. But right now I'm focused on the linebacker crew and making sure that they don't suck butt. So that's my priority right now, guys. But I'd love to hear your perspectives on that question. Definitely. Would you rather save the money and sign OBJ in his paperclip ACL, or would you rather go for a linebacker? Definitely curious to hear your thoughts. As always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe. We'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.